Hello, everyone. This is Defense Politics Asia, and this is a very special exclusive discussion session. And I have invited a few regulars from the Open Mic to come and discuss about the latest developments over at Soledar. And I'm wearing my Soledar, my Zelensky outfit. So we're gonna have Alan and Aki.
Hey,
Hello, all.
So crazy things has happened in
Man,
Soledar.
very busy day for the Ukrainians and the Russians and everyone in between because there's also news from Europe, right? They're all scrambling to talk about what's going on.
they're probably talking about more weapons.
Yeah, because there was the Challenger tanks yesterday too. What was her name? What was her name? Totally forgetting the girl's name. Mentioned how she would be interested in sending Challenger tanks to Ukraine.
Canada said they're gonna send. They're gonna buy NASAMS missiles from USA and send it.
Yeah.
To you.
Now sounds a bit late, right, for that.
Well, for this special stream, should I throw on my Zelensky plate carrier so I can look like Zelensky
Sure.
at a Bakhmut?
I just published the latest update, like was around 1-2 hours ago,
Yep.
on the DPA War channel, and then the latest information is that there is some 300 to 400 Ukrainian troops getting surrounded or encircled in the northern part of the Salt Mine 4. So
There's
and then
yeah.
the way how I look at it is like they are not encircled as in like they are totally surrounded per se, but it's like there's only two roads going out from that town, the suburb, and both roads is currently under full fire control of the Russians, and probably within the next few hours is already going to be surrounded, and they have actually, I remember also reading that the Russians actually gave the Ukrainian troops that were surrounded an ultimatum to surrender by 12 midnight.
No, 12
I think
p.m. today. I don't think it
12
was.
p.m.
Yeah.
I saw
Really
it's 12 midnight.
interesting.
It's 000 hours for 11.
000.
is-
Yeah, that's
Could be,
midnight.
Could be because I saw 12:00, so maybe somebody wrote wrong.
You know what it probably was? Someone read 000, and then maybe someone who just doesn't use the 24-hour clock just
Yeah.
switched it over and just didn't put AM.
Yeah, so it was a bit like it was quite sudden, the surrender time. It's like, they almost gave them like no time to think about it. So I'm not sure if the Ukrainian soldiers even get it at all.
Well, typically when they get an ultimatum, there's Zelensky coming out. He's like, "We are not gonna surrender. We're gonna start. We're gonna fight." We haven't got that yet.
Because it's quite bad, right? Like, because I think 2 days ago, 2 days ago, I already reported about the mercenaries talking about, like asking their friends via Instagram of all places to quickly get out of that place, get to safety. And the word "get to safety" seems to suggest that there is actually no safety
Yeah.
if you are around the region.
Well, I mean, we saw I mean, it was shared like all over the Telegram chats. There was that's that screenshot, like that story screenshot of the guy. I think that's the guy you guys are talking about, right? He posted that the image regarding like, hey, everyone get out, and all the emojis and everything. If you're posting that though, I guess I'm probably going to be the one guy who's going to be like, I don't think it's going to be as severe for Ukraine as it can be. I don't think this could be another Popasna solely because there's too much going on right now to make any like tactical decisions like what we believe could happen. If we say Soledar has collapsed, I remember very vividly when you were covering Liman and the retreat from Kharkov. Everyone was like, you remember Liman was like the one town holding off while
Yep.
the Russians kind of pulled out. Everyone kept saying, "Oh, the Russians are pushing back." There's this. I remember there was a big
Yeah.
drama that came out where like a huge push of Russians came towards Liman, and they were like, "Oh, that's it. The Kharkov offensive is over because they're pushing back." And then 3 hours later, man, already, man, you guys are awesome. So
Thank you so
I guess
much.
yeah, that's, I mean, $20.
Yeah, because for the Russians, when they do this kind of tactical withdrawal, they always start with an counter-offensive first. They have a reserve force. They will push back the Ukrainians so that they can actually do a withdrawal. We doesn't see this in the Ukrainian side at the moment. It's like they did try. It seems like they did try based on the sources that I've read.
There was a push into Soledar. They pushed, I think, like 5 streets down. This was like earlier today, maybe earlier this morning, because I remember I woke up and I was reading some stuff. They pushed in, and then within like, I don't know, 6 hours, they were already pushed out. So maybe those are the ones who are already encircled, but I could be wrong. Because if I got a map, so I could probably reference where this was.
Yeah.
One key difference is that we haven't seen Ukrainians till now doing like a proper retreat, except I guess you can say
Lysychansk was a pretty good one.
Yeah, Lysychansk. That's the only one. Apart from that, they don't really retreat. They stay as long as possible, and I think that's not very smart when you have limited.
Because I think that's the plan for Soledar as well. Like from all the sources that I've seen, it seems like the Ukrainians are throwing people at the defense lines to try to hold off. But I did read that I'm not sure from a Russian source, pro-Russian source, but it's based on a video from a Ukrainian soldier that he said that the Ukrainian soldiers on the ground knows that they're going to give up Soledar. Like they know that they cannot hold it, but he cannot understand why the command continue to send troops in and then not just withdraw and save the troops. So I think the same thing happened. There's also a interview on CNN as well of similar things where they actually, according to this soldier, which they cannot name because
of course they can
for security reasons. At least that's what CNN.
No,
CNN
that makes sense. That sometimes makes sense.
Yeah. Then the soldiers said that they lost so many troops to the point where they don't even know how many troops they lost. So they just know that they just have reinforcement to continue to come in to reinforce the troops, and that's quite scary because you don't even know how much troops that you are losing. Then they are just sending troops in to try to hold the line. That's what they care about. So, but of course, there is an anecdote we do not know, but that's from CNN, which is a surprising thing.
Well, did you guys see that combat footage that came out? I think this was about 2 months ago. No, this was less than 2 months ago. Combat footage, like a helmet cam of a patrol in the forest who got ambushed by this is like a big thing. It was like 5 minutes long. That was apparently American and Ukrainian mercenaries, and that same mercenary group reported that they had been sent out, and they got geolocated. They were in the forest line around Bakhmut, or not around Bakhmut. It was where which factory was there? There's like a factory in Bakhmut that was like fought over for a long time. I remember it was on your map.
On the eastern side, is it?
Yes.
The wine factory?
Yeah, what is it called? I have to open the map to actually remember.
Yeah. I'll pull one up real quick too.
Vaughn just got in. Hi, Vaughn.
Hello, Vaughn. Is he here yet? I don't see the stream. I'm looking up at a map.
Yeah. He's on now. He's drinking his. I'm not sure it'd be our soft drink.
Somebody
commented
gypsum plant.
Oh, that Mountain Dew have very high alcohol content. You don't get drunk on the stream.
This man just said, "Don't get drunk on the stream" from Mountain Dew, bro.
Vaughn, you're muted just in case you do not know. Huh?
Oh, no, I was just gonna say. I mean, it's crazy how fast things are apparently changing in that whole area. I mean, it seems like all these different channels are posting maps, and it's like, dude, that map's like 3 hours old. This map, the other channel posted, actually shows the encirclement. I mean, it almost sounds. I mean, if it's to be believed, like if it's going down the way it's being reported, it sounds like they're almost in pursuit of the retreating Ukrainians.
Yes.
Like they're not letting up on them. They got them running, and they're going to run them into the ground. But who knows?
Yeah,
it seems like there could be, like that guy says, that the guy that runs Wagner, he's like, don't talk about it, don't say nothing, hold it for a couple days and then brag about it. I mean, what we're seeing today could have happened on Sunday or Saturday. They could, because they're saying now that they're west of Soledar, heading towards some other area, and it's like, is that where they are today, or are we going to find out that they've pushed on through there? I mean, it sounds like they've actually gone past it, though.
Well, yeah. On top of that, they're taking photos with Prigozhin in the mine, right? In the mine.
Which is mind blowing, right? Because it's like we only saw the reports that they just captured, or just reached that area, and then suddenly the footage already come out, the photos already come out that he's in the mine. Similarly, for the one at the junction, there was this at the junction between the two roads that I reported in the middle of Soledar, the northern brow of Soledar. We only have the information that they reached there, but then there is already video footage of fighting over there, which video footage might suggest that that thing happened at least a day or two prior, which means that the whatever that we are looking now from all these reports might actually happen 1 or 2 days ago. It's not so live as we would like to imagine.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could think of that they offered the ceasefire or the opportunity to retreat in the next 24 hours, and it's like, are they actually going to let them retreat? Or, I don't think they will, because, they're surrounded. From the map I saw, like, they're completely surrounded. There's, like, either fight or die, or give up. And I don't know. It just seems like, again, I don't get it, because they have so much access to surveillance platforms and all the, predators and J-stars and rivet joints, and that tracks vehicles and everything on the ground. And I got to think that they're like, hey, dude, you got to go. There's, this many troops, this many vehicles on this side. They're getting ready to pound you. They've got to see the Wagner or the Russians forming up. They got to know where they're moving to some degree, because they got real-time surveillance of every kind you could imagine. And you think they'd be like, hey, you better go, because, they obviously can't stop Wagner or whoever from advancing or doing it. So you'd think they'd be telling them to get the hell out of the way or retreat and try to save as many guys as they could, but it doesn't seem like they ever listen or take that advice, or they wait till the last minute and it's too late for somebody as usual. Look at
radios.
Lizzie Chance. Was it Lizzie Chance where a lot of guys got caught in that cauldron before they took the refinery?
Yeah. Because
they waited too long to pull back. Same thing. It's like, dude, you got the best real-time intelligence on the ground in the world right now, probably, and you're making like amateur mistakes. Even with no radios, it's like you can't send a runner to go like, get the fuck out of here, run, motherfucker. Something. Send a drone with a speaker, fly a drone over the speaker.
No, that's the thing. I think radios do play way more into the communications lines that NATO would want to have than Ukraine is capable of having. You're seeing this happen in Soledar. If these guys don't have radios, right, or at least if not enough of them have radios, no matter how much data they get, they're not going to send a runner across open streets to be targeted by, every sort of artillery imaginable.
But
you're muted.
Usually, I would not think that there will be no radios. Usually, I would still believe that there will be radios.
Do you guys?
Radios can be easily triangulated and become a target for artillery as well. So,
there was rumors too from the Duran, about the 61st Brigade withdrawing, and then I saw some other stories saying that other units had heard that and were starting to pull out and leave their positions too, almost like there was a panic starting. And I wonder if that's what allowed Wagner to make these big gains, that maybe a bunch of units got scared and pulled out real quick, and then they just jumped up and took. I'm sure they're fighting, obviously, but without radios, maybe this squad fell back and retreated. The other squad didn't know shit and stayed and died. That it's because it sounds like it's not even a whole battalion. It sounds like it's the surviving members of different units. So obviously they're not probably even able to talk to each other. And then
I think that's quite normal, right?
And then you think about it. There's that. Yeah, and then if there's nationalist units there or blocking units, even if you get told to leave, you can't leave. So
No, the moment you said that, someone in the chat said the SBU didn't shoot enough cowards.
But we did see actually from pro-Russian sources that there is intel that the SBU officers were actually sent to Soledar. That was like 2 days, 3 days ago, where they are trying to make sure that the lines hold. So, but it seems like they failed their job. Maybe the Soledar officers, the SBU officers also got freaked out by all the fighting. Maybe they themselves did not actually enter the city for long.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, think about it. They're used to like rounding people up, not sitting in a trench getting bombed.
Well, they're used to bureaucracy. That's what they're used to. They're used to everyone having a job to do and doing it, like a machine, and then et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, if you've suffered enough casualties that communication breakdown, then you're gonna get surrounded. You're gonna get destroyed.
Yeah.
Do you guys think they're gonna learn from this and they're gonna retreat from Bakhmut, or they're gonna stay there?
Who knows? You'd think they would, but
they should have retreated from Bakhmut.
Every time you give them the benefit of the doubt, they always seem to drop the ball or make the worst choice.
Because I did warn about when I did the map about the potential pincer movement that the Russians might be doing, because because from the movement of the troops, the way how the momentum of the war went, I thought that it seems like the Russians are not going to go for Bakhmut through Bakhmut. They're going to go around it. So I also, during the video, I also did mention that there's a few key points, key settlements that the Ukrainians must hold. The moment those settlements fall, they have to retreat, or else they will start to get encircled. And the Soledar situation looks similar, where it's just like a smaller Bakhmut, where they're getting encircled from the north and the south. In fact, the I'm surprised that in the northern part of Soledar, the fighting has already reached Krasnopolivka. Krasnopolivka is actually the town just north of Sil. Sil is actually the railway station for Soledar. So it's like,
fun fact, that just means salt, by the way.
Sil is salt.
It just translates to salt.
Oh, that's so cool, man. That's actually very cool.
Soledar means salt giver. That's all it means. Like, because it's a big salt city.
Oh.
No, but I'm looking at the map. If they got the Krasnopoliv, that's like 10 miles in. That's what kilometers? That's 17 kilometers past Yakovlivka. Like
Yakovlivka. Let me check.
Yeah, if that's the case, that's why I think something happened. I mean, either a bunch of guys pulled out or a panic ensued because somebody pulled out, and maybe they just left a big gap, and the Wagner guys just rolled up as quick as they could.
Right.
It's around 7 kilometers from Yakovlivka. 7 kilometers. So
that's
maybe
still a lot.
I'm probably looking. I'm looking from the center to the center. Are you looking at the center? Am I doing this wrong?
Yeah.
Hold on.
7 kilometers. So not 17. 17 sounds very far away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 5 miles.
Yeah, around 5 miles. But the fact is that they have already been pushing from Yakovlivka out. So it's not surprising that they are near Krasnopolivka.
That's right.
I'm just surprised that the Russian push is very aggressive this time around. I mean, it seems a lot more aggressive than what I seen during the Severodonetsk time, the Popasna time, where the advance this time around it seems a lot more aggressive. It's like they don't even want to allow them to retreat, like, because if you capture Krasnopolivka, the northern retreat is gone. They cannot go to Siversk anymore.
It's actually more than that. If you look on the map, their retreat from Bakhmut is endangered because they would obviously try to retreat first to Chasiv Yar and then Konstantinivka. I think that's how they would try to retreat from Bakhmut. And if you cut off Soledar as well. Yeah.
So let me.
There you go.
Yeah. So you were saying?
So let me see your map. Okay. If you zoom out just a teeny little bit, you can see where, like, further west, if they try to retreat, I feel they'd be retreating actually directly, that way, because there's a lot of trail roads.
Zalizniansky.
Yeah, Zalizniansky.
Yeah, so because
they cannot take the heavy equipment that way.
I don't think there's any heavy equipment left.
Because to retreat
all the
through
footage
here will be challenging though. If they
Yeah.
want to use the road, it's going to be a grid. You're going to zigzag through
Mhm.
to Zeliznianske. Then they can actually hit the E40 highway. So the natural thing they will want to do is actually to go through the highway or go through the smaller road. But the problem is now the Russians are approaching. So
Yeah.
that's the
Okay.
key
I
problem now they're facing.
I can't think of the name of the area, but I think it's in that around that train station, and it covers. Somebody said they said something about they captured the high ground in this key area, which gave
Yeah.
them fire control over the only road left to get out.
Mhm.
So
So
this
wherever
is
that
actually the
road
high
is, they
ground.
must be sitting on a ridge line somewhere.
So let me change to Google Earth, which will actually allow us to see the high ground much better.
Yeah.
So turn this off. Turn this off. Okay, sorry for the disorientation. So Soledar. So let's say if I'm gonna like, so if you look at it right in this way, this Soledar, the high ground is actually all around on the northern side of Soledar.
You know, actually,
So the Russians have
there's a
been pushing
there's a
south down.
topographic there's a topographic map you can pull up on Google here.
Yeah.
I think if you click on the 2D, maybe it turns to 3D.
No, this 2D, like this. Unless,
Can I share mine? Because I have the
sure, share yours. Share
Okay.
yours. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Mhm.
Do you have the share button there?
Yep, share screen.
Yeah. Share screen. Where's the? Do you press share screen?
Yeah, I'm just making sure that I have some stuff open that you guys don't see.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Don't show anything that is private.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful. This is the internet. Then we have 600 people watching now. So it's going to be like 600 people saw your porn stash or something. No, that's
Right. I wish that's what it was. No, it's a lot more boring than that. All right, do you guys see it?
Okay. I added the stream. Yeah. The relief map.
Well, the reason this one's helpful because it allows you to see where. Do you guys even see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Okay.
see.
The reason this one's helpful, I think, is because it allows you to see the ways that Russia could move, right? And if they try to move towards Chasiv Yar and Kramatorsk, they have this huge ridge. I don't even call it a ridge line. Just a series of, I guess, high ground, a series of hills this way. So, do you think they have to go to Siversk? Because do you think they could be funneled towards there?
I think it just depends on the only way they're getting funneled is if Ukraine has the military forces to funnel them.
Okay.
I mean, I think they're going to go wherever there's the least resistance. I mean, they'll probably fix the Ukrainians where they have to fix them because they can't push past them. And I mean, not to make like a breakthrough thing, but they might start flowing through like water around there, trying to find openings.
Right. Well, then again, Wyatt, you've talked about this before. Bakhmut is a huge
it's a
spindle.
hub.
It's a hub. Yeah, it's a hub of highways in like almost every direction.
I kind of agree with Alan because Wyatt, in your video you were talking about like the new defensive line that Ukrainians are about to make. I think that's where they're all gonna go.
Yeah, the likelihood of the next line of major line defense is likely to be from Konstantinivka and moving all the way to Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. Most likely that will be the line. But to reach that line can take months. For example, when Popasna fell, my first thought was that they would go directly for Bakhmut. But
you can see on the map they have the high ground on Bakhmut or in Popasna, and then they came down. They came down from the high ground,
and that took months. That's the thing. Yeah, from Popasna to reach even Bakhmut, it took months. So I think that the Ukrainians is going to have a lot of time to build the next line of defense. And then this progress might take months before we even talk about fighting at Konstantinivka or Sloviansk or Kramatorsk. Yeah, so those that are those are pro-Russian in the viewers currently in the chat. Yeah, don't get too excited. it's gonna be very underwhelming.
It's gonna be a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
How long do you think it's gonna be until they reach Siversk? Are they gonna go to Siversk, in your opinion? Why?
Siversk is a problematic place because the whoever is commanding that place on the Ukrainian side seems to be really good at their job. Because ever since the fall of the entire Luhansk region, the Russians have failed repeatedly to try to penetrate through, what's it called, Verkhanokanyamsky, Kharkovivka, Sebryanka, even Bilohorivka. They just cannot get through. They can't even get through Spurny. It's like the Russians are just the entire line. They're just stuck there.
I remember they held the high ground on it, so every time the Russians would approach, they had like a little canyon they could shoot down into at them.
So no, that's why I did a video on the Siversk analysis. I say that it seems like the logical way for the Russians is actually from the south, from Rozdolivka. They actually try to attack the rear to cut off the reinforcement and cause a panic in the Ukrainian troops at the front line to actually redraw. I think that seems to be more likely the case because I don't think they need to capture Siversk itself. As long as they can go around it and cut off the reinforcement or resupply route, I think the Ukrainians will have to redraw. The question is, how heavily defended are these outskirt regions? Because like when we look at the Soledar, they seems like there's a need to go through the center first, and then before they are able to go around it.
How many I think you did a video on this. How many soldiers are estimated to be in like that region of Bakhmut, Soledar, and Siversk?
Oh, I think the numbers is now changed. I think the Bakhmut region now, based on I saw some other people saying, was like 60,000 troops currently in the entire of Bakhmut region. Vaughn, you're muted.
I was going to say, I've heard 60,000 quite a bit.
That's a lot, man. Jesus.
I mean, that was in the beginning, so who knows now?
Okay.
But I mean, I was thinking though, with like right now, it might, with all these units that got dumped into the Bakhmut Soledar corridor, and the fact that a lot of them are getting busted up pretty bad, and maybe even retreating and falling back, it might just be a thing right now where the Russians are just taking advantage of the chaos and just getting what they can get, and then they'll stop once the Ukrainians start firming up again, and then they'll just start slogging out again. But right now, like I said, I think we don't know, but I think there's a good chance that it's hot pursuit right now. They're filling the gaps and running them down if they can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And they might be able to get in. They might be able to get a little farther north and maybe start to get around behind Siversk a little bit. And like Wyatt said, if they can get a little bit behind there and kind of get that momentum moving that way, that might be enough to get them to pull out and panic.
Well, here's the counter to that. If there's 60,000 in that region, okay, and I saw, this might be wrong, but it looked pretty legit to me, a draft note of the 300,000th Ukrainian. Did you guys see that? There was a draft note?
Yeah.
I think I shared it with you guys.
Yeah.
I saw it.
Do you think that was legit or not? Because if only 300,000 Ukrainians have been drafted, then that's insane to think about. And then on top of that, going back to Vaughn's point, if they do start to kind of pull up behind them, why don't they blow the bridges on the Dnieper? They have 60,000 Ukrainians like trapped on that side. It's over. That's if it's 300,000. Additionally, I guess to the wherever they might have had casualties, it's just like, where is?
I don't know. I mean, that seems like 300,000 is so low compared to their 1,000,000-man army brag.
Right.
And then, I mean, and plus they go around and force people to get their summons and drag people off. So maybe it was the 300,000th person to get one, but there's still other people that got them passed. Like, you're number 100,000 or you're number 200,000. It could have been something like that just got lost in translation, because if they only got 300,000 guys plus the 700 they started with, we could say regardless of alive or dead, there's probably at least 300,000 guys out of the fight. So they're sitting back at 700,000 max, and they still got to protect Western Ukraine, Southern Ukraine, and Odessa.
Northern part as well.
Yeah. and on top of that, they got to keep trying to hold the Russians in the middle.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Why not?
They're running out of places. They're running out of guys to put in places. Because I mean, really, the big key is how much is it sitting in Western Ukraine, holding back to that they think they're going to need for the northern border. I mean, there's got to be something worth a damn sitting there. I mean, or are we going to believe they pissed away all their best equipment? I mean, I'd hate to think they did that, but they don't seem to be making very good choices in a lot of other places. So maybe they did piss away everything, and all they got left is territorials.
Then again, could they blow? Okay, I guess I'm harping on this point because I think it could be like the game changer, right? If they blow the bridges on the Dnieper, those troops are trapped and they're not getting reinforced. It's over for them, right?
Yeah, but like Drew, that one guy Drew was saying, why not leave the bridges up and let them keep coming in and getting killed?
Because if they have 300,000, let's say 400,000 soldiers, and 60,000 are trapped on one side, that's not a small amount of their military.
I mean, it would be a huge hit no matter what. I think it just depends if they want to kill them or capture them.
Yeah.
If they want to demilitarize,
there's no way they're going to capture 60,000 people, man.
Yes, my theory was that depending on what you look at, the objective of the Russians objective is demilitarization. They want to wipe out the Ukrainian military. Then if you blow up the Dnieper River, they're just allowing Ukraine to have a lot of time to build up a new army on the western side. But if you keep the bridge open, then they will just keep sending troops into the east, where they can so-called the meat-grinder thing can continue. Because the Ukrainians will be tempted to continue to send troops over to continue the fight, and then the Russian can just continue to use their artillery to shell them out. So no, it's not strategically advantageous to blow up the bridges for the Russians, because even the Russians do not have the means to actually cross the Dnieper River easily. So no, like there's the same reason why they are not taking Odessa just yet, because the amphibious ability is pretty limited on the Russian side.
Yeah. That's a given.
What about the Dnieper River? Does it freeze in a way that vehicles can pass on it or no?
I don't think so, right?
Maybe some of the small channels between the islands might, but I don't think the main channel would.
Definitely the southern river doesn't freeze. I'll tell you that much.
Bakhmut River. I think that should freeze.
I have seen pictures of rivers frozen in that area, but they're broken up because they're driving vehicles through them and putting bridges over them and stuff. So, I mean, they're freezing, but it's probably not enough for anything to go across except people.
NASA says that the Dnieper freezes, so.
Well, it's not just freezing. It's supposed to, like, it's the thickness of the ice. Like, just freezing doesn't really help too much.
I don't know if we could trust NASA. They had Nazis in their ranks.
They had a picture, man. Operation Paperclip.
Someone said that every time I talk, he need to turn up the volume. Someone said that I'm talking very softly. Let me move my mic nearer.
Am I too loud? I'll move this away.
No, it's not your fault. It's me. The mic is pretty far away from me. Yeah. Anyone have any questions? No. Some say that it's not cold enough to freeze this year. The temperature lately has been a bit messed up.
Weather weapon conspiracy theories. Let's go, boys.
The heart project.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say one thing though. With the arms package that's coming with all the Bradleys and stuff. I mean, the total amount of vehicles is about a brigade's worth of vehicles.
That's from the U.S., right?
Yeah, and with was it like 100 M113s and then the Bradleys and then the Martyrs. And the way what they're getting, it's almost like they're getting a headquarters unit, because you got this artillery unit attached in the trucks. So, I mean, at best you've got like with the equipment, unless it's going to be infantry. So at best that's like a heavy reconnaissance brigade, with the 105 French tank or wheeled tanks, and then the Bradleys with the tows. But overall, those vehicles all are pretty much comparable to the BMP 2s and 3s. They got the same capabilities as far as they both have autocannons in 25 millimeter or better, which will kill either side of either one of those vehicles. And then they both have ATGMs. The only advantage that Bradley has is it might have some better sights. But
Does it have thermals?
at the ranges they're going to be fighting, it's not going to matter. I mean, the Russians can shoot a cornet off of a BMP, and reload it probably as fast as it takes them to fire 2 toes off. The wheeled tanks, same thing. They could knock out a tank, maybe, but they're going to have to take a shot or 2 and leave because they cannot take any fire from a BMP or a tank. And then the artillery obviously is going to have to be.
They can't take fire from a Dushka.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, they're anything above probably like a 50 cal is going to punch right through them.
Yeah.
And then, the artillery is obviously going to have to be split up and used. So basically, like they were saying, they're going to probably just spread these out between units that have already been decimated to try and give them some equipment to build another unit around. But again, it's the same thing. The Bradleys are great if you can get somewhere and shoot long distance, but everything that they sent, it's all made to shoot and scoot and retreat. It's designed to take a shot, fall back, take a shot, fall back. It's not designed to. So, I mean, again, they're sending equipment that isn't really going to fit the bill for what Ukraine needs. They need stuff that can stop the Russians cold and then hold the Russians. You're just sending, yeah, you can kill tanks with them and kill infantry, but you're not going to stop the First Guards tank army. You're not going to stop a T-90 battalion. You're probably not even going to be able to stop a T-90 company if they're halfway decently trained because
shit. Can you stop a T-90 platoon? Can you stop a T-90 platoon with enough infantry support?
Oh, yeah, you could. I'm just saying, but you got to get close enough to do it, and they can shoot you from farther away. They got thermal sights. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, the infantry can get you, but they got to get close enough to the infantry to do that, and then the infantry is well within range of everything the tank has. So, I mean, it's just like, that type of unit should have been sent in the beginning of the war, that they could have used those guys to scout out the Russians as they came down. But now they're sending these guys, and what are they going to do? Put them into DRGs and then we'll send them on some stupid assault to get killed, and then that'll be the end of that equipment. Because nothing there is designed to stop the Russians or any kind of pure level mechanized force. It's designed to scout them out, take some shots, and run away. That's all that equipment's designed to do.
Do Bradleys have thermal optics?
Yeah. They do. They have thermals. They got a laser rangefinder. I mean, it's pretty slick. Like I said, it's probably a little bit better system than on a BMP or something. But
yeah,
if you're both shooting at 1,000 meters, that doesn't really matter. It's just going to come off to whoever has the shot off first. And both autocannons could kill each other. And the infantry.
What about the BMPs with the 100 millimeter cannons?
Huh?
What about the BMPs with the 100 millimeter guns?
Oh, they could kill those too, but those are more of it's not so much direct fire. It's more of a lobbing round, like an RPG type round. But again, RPG round's going to kill a Bradley easy. I mean, if it hits the engine block, you might survive. The crew could get out, but it's dead. And they're aluminum, so it's going to burn.
Engines in the front, right?
Yeah. So you get a little protection there, but it's not going to – like if a T-90 saw it and fired a Sable round, that thing's going to go through the front and come out the back and keep on going. I mean, that's like I said, it's a joke. They'll be protected from the artillery to a certain point. They can assault. But those Bradleys, I mean, if they try to go into cities and assault and support the infantry, they're going to be just as vulnerable as the guys in Grozny when they went in and with all the armored vehicles and they just got ass whipped by the RPGs and all the gunners and stuff. It'll be the same thing. They're great, but once you close with infantry, it's an equal fight.
Yeah, which is why tanks is a thing, you see, because I think on Twitter I did reply someone. The reason why tanks exist is that the tank is basically the ultimate weapon. It kills everything. As long as it sees you, it fires at you, you're dead. And the tanks will also be heavily armored to the point where most things can't kill it except for another tank. Usually, except that modern days, ATGM is pretty good. So that's why tank is still relevant. Infantry fighting vehicles cannot replace a tank. It's just a different kind of weapon. So if you have a weapon that can kill literally everything with one shot, it's a totally different thing. I think which is why the Ukrainians really wanted the tanks, because without a tank you can't really do an offensive. You can't really attack. whatever the NATO or the Western side is trying to develop for the Ukrainians, based on all the Marders and Bradleys, is still the most is just a mechanized infantry kind of a formation, which is mostly more defensive than offensive, because without tanks you can't really push. It's just you can't kill anything that
yeah, they don't have the combined arms to make that an offensive unit. Really, it's like,
yeah.
I mean, the only thing they could do is load them up with like man pads and ATGM, so they'd be like a really heavy mechanized infantry force. But even then, you're in a foxhole. Here comes a T-90. Yeah, you can pop a shot off with a javelin, but that guy can. I mean, I'll dig your ass out with a Sabo round in that trench. I mean, on the we used to. You'd be amazed at what a Sabo round could do to the ground. I mean, go ahead and hide. I'll just shoot about 10 feet.
Action.
Well, I mean, you could just aim about 10 feet low and shoot into the dirt, and it'd probably go far enough in and dig them out. I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's just nowhere to hide from that kind of shit, and they're sending the worst thing to go up against tanks. They work with tanks, not against tanks. Those types of vehicles would be out in front saying, "Hey, here comes the Russians." And then they'd get the hell out of there. Then the tanks would be sitting there waiting for the Russians to come down the road, and then they'd smoke them. But the Ukrainians are going to take all that shit and try to do an offensive again, just like with the Humvees driving through the fields and getting hit with direct artillery fire and main gun rounds and getting blown to pieces. I mean, that's a joke. I'm surprised more Ukrainian soldiers haven't gotten fucking pissed off about being sent to their deaths, literally, because they got to know. I mean, if you survive,
maybe they have. Maybe we just don't see it.
Huh?
Maybe we just haven't seen it.
Yeah, I'm sure they're hiding it. Because, I mean, if you're a veteran of a few of these battles, you've got to know it's a clusterfuck, and your life is pretty much over if you don't get hurt.
I mean, if you're a veteran of this battle, all you've seen is 6 hours of artillery fire. It stops, and then suddenly there's 4 tanks coming at you. I mean, you're not even fighting. You're either dying or surrendering.
Even if they did get the tanks, do they even have the mechanism to really maintain it? I don't think so.
That's a Vaughn question.
Yeah. What about Abrams?
I mean, the footprint for the maintenance of like even a platoon of tanks, which is 4 tanks, would be massive. I mean, it wouldn't be massive. It's just it would be big enough to where it would be noticeable. And if you add 8 tanks or 12 tanks, make it a company or make it a battalion with 45 tanks. I mean, you're talking hundreds and hundreds of vehicles. There's no way to hide it. And the only way that force is going to be useful is if it's all together. I mean, 4 tanks here, 2 there, 3 there is never going to do anything. That would have to be like, the Ukrainian Azov tank battalion that stays together, has MiG-29s for flight, air cover, has Hind choppers provide, and artillery. I mean, and that's never going to happen for them. It's never going to happen. So it's a waste of time for them to even try. It's stupid for them to ask. It's insulting that politicians would even humor them and act like they would even give them to them. When anyone that is in the military should be telling them that that's not possible. I mean, even the German Leopard 2, it's a German M1. It's the same damn thing. It's the same gun. Probably the same thermal systems. The only difference is it's probably in German. It's got a different turret shape.
Mm-hmm. I remember reading a report or an article about they experimented between all the different NATO tanks. The slight difference was that I think the Leopard tank survived I think support rounds better, and then the Abrams survived ATGM better. Something like this. There's some
the Leopard.
Difference.
The Leopard's turret survives it better. I read about that. The Leopard's turret has some classified shit that survives it better, but its frontal armor is almost identical to the Abrams.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same kind of armor. It's the Chobham armor package, whatever that's made out of.
Yeah, it's like a composite, right? It's like a
It's like composite steel. I've heard all kinds of stuff. Like they say there's jelly in it and shit. Like some kind of stretch Armstrong goo. They tell you all kinds of crazy shit, but who knows? I mean, it works, but
unless you cut it open and look at it, you're not gonna know.
Well, they say like the skirts on the tank are made out of the same material, and they say if one of those breaks open and you see it, that you get pulled off the line for 24 hours and debriefed and told you can't say nothing about it, which I didn't know what the hell you'd say about it. It's like it broke open. I saw this shit. I mean, back then we didn't have cell phones, so it wasn't like I was going to take a picture and post it on Instagram. Oh,
The tank pissed itself.
Might as well just put my hand here. Take me to Leavenworth now. But yeah, I mean, it's really good armor. It works good. It's just I don't know. To me, it's just like the wrong tank at the wrong time for the wrong people.
And not enough of them. Volume too.
So the reaction by the West, saying that they need like the Ukraine saying that they need more weapons now because they are losing or they're not doing as well. But even all this equipment, it's not going to come in time, right? It's not going to come in time.
They should have asked in May, right? They should have
they
started
have been asking since February, right?
Well, I mean, they should have
Yeah, they have been asking for the sky and the earth for since March, but no one wants to give them.
What about Leopard 1s? Do you think they might send Leopard 1s? Because those are older tanks. I mean,
a Leopard 1's like an M60. It's still got a 4-man crew, and it would have.
Oh yeah, you need a loader.
If depending, I would assume they're upgraded, like maybe like Leopard 1 A5, so they would have thermals and stuff too. But that shit's been in storage forever, so I would imagine most of that. Who knows if it even works or if it even could be refurbished? And even if it can, that's still months.
Fuck. Well, then why discuss it now?
They should have been training on these tanks before the war started, like a year or two before, if they actually wanted to have a shot at using them.
Well, I mean, this is all just good. I don't think Russia would allow them.
Bullshit, huh?
Russia wouldn't allow them to train on them, probably.
No, I mean they would have had to do it on the down low, like send guys stateside to Fort Benning and train them on it there, and then maybe sneak some tanks in from Poland or something. But yeah, I would imagine once the Russians, if those things touched Ukrainian soil, that'd be that.
Even before the conflict, right?
Yeah, I think so. Because that's just too much of a tank to have. I mean, it's like putting a missile base there or something. Once an American tank's sitting there, it's kind of like, well, they know everything else is going to come.
Mm-hmm. Like it's like with the floodgates open, right?
Yeah, I mean, once you get your foot in the in the door, I mean, what's to stop it from coming all the way? I mean, the T90 and the T80 could probably go toe to toe with the M1, but again, the M1 is going to be crewed by Ukrainians, and the T90 is going to be crewed by some guys that have been fighting for 10 months.
Yeah, that's exactly the point I was trying to make, David March. Remember, Soviet Eastern tanks have autoloaders, Western tanks don't. So that's a huge change for the servicemen.
But the Ukrainians wouldn't care, right? They just wanted the tanks. So anyway, it's not Zelensky is going to be the one doing the training. Like he's not. Doesn't matter. The leadership are not the one have to suffer.
Could they theoretically take Western mercenaries who were maybe like actual mercenaries who were like former military and put the Westerners in the tanks?
They could.
Yeah, because they would be a little bit more.
I mean, if you could find guys that would. My thing is, I would think if you wanted to find good crews, you'd have to go to the Americans. You could maybe get some guys from Egypt. Because when I was in the Army, we trained Kuwaitis, Egyptians, and we had like English people there and German people there and stuff. But out of all the foreigners, I'd say the Egyptians were probably the ones that took the best training as far as handling the M1 and getting the hang of it. The Kuwaitis, they were like showboats. They just like to shoot it, and then they'd jump off and talk on their cell phones. And back then, their cell phone was like one of them big-ass bricks. Yeah. The guy, he did some gunnery, and he shot real good, so he hops off the tank, and he's like, talking on his phone. Some crown prince.
Hey, Mom, I got it.
He's one of the crown princes Kuwait, so, there's like 500 of those guys. But, I mean, you'd have to – I wouldn't go picking Saudi crews or, Polish crews maybe. Well, no, they're not even really trained up either. They're just now getting them. So you'd have to find American mercenary tankers that would – and they would probably do it, but you'd have to pay them probably up front. I mean, I'd let my cash up front.
Because they'd be priority number one, right?
I mean, that's the thing. That thing would become the biggest target in the world. Think about it. If Russia could destroy those tanks and then just drag one back to Kubinka and put it on display next to the 777 they got.
Shit. Imagine
we're
mounting
gonna
up a
invite in
destroyed. Oh,
welcome
think about
Manny
it.
because he's the
Hey,
expert
man,
in
they-
all
they-
these
oh, the
stuff.
M60 tanker.
They'd love to get a Leopard 2 in there too, you know, so he could sit with his grandfather.
Maddie, I think you're echoing.
Oh, your audio is shit.
Yeah,
You
we
need to
can't hear
reconnect
you.
your earpiece. Yeah, it's horrible. You need to reconnect.
Reconnect.
No, cannot hear you. You are so muffled. Yeah, you got jammed by the Russians.
it sounds like we're talking over.
Your mic is not working.
It's your mic. Your mic is okay. Yeah, he knows.
Okay, he's gone.
Speaking
So
of
the Russian
Russians,
jamming works.
speaking of
But I mean,
Russians,
think about it. The Russians would love to capture a Leo 2 so they could put it next to its grandfather's at Kubinka.
Yeah.
And they'd probably paint an Iron Cross on it too, just to make it even more insulting to the Germans.
Do you guys think Russians are going to mobilize again?
No. Not unless something really bad happened and they lost a lot of people. I don't see why they would have to at this point. If they're fighting the way that we think they're fighting, which is to hold, just to push and pound, and they're being cautious and trying not to have a lot of casualties, I don't see why they would need to mobilize. I think they were smart enough this time to make sure you ain't got no 6-month contract. You're in for the duration if you got mobilized.
Could they maybe lean more on hiring more people or transferring more people to the Wagner group, having more people operate out of that?
I don't
because
know if
then Russia could step away from it realistically, right? Legally, they could step away.
I don't think Russia would. I don't think the Russian government would want Wagner to have that kind of pull, because he's already going to be. Let's put it this way: the way it's going for Wagner, if it's going the way that the news is saying it's going, the guy, the Provoka guy, whatever the head of the Wagner,
Prigozhin, yeah,
Prigozhin, he's the new fucking Zukov of Russia.
Absolutely, he is. Fucking all the soldiers love his ass, man.
He's gonna have to be reined in. He's gonna get the glory. He's gonna get the fame. He's gonna get all this clout. But I guarantee you, they probably don't want him getting too big of a private army, because I mean, obviously they can perform, and then you got to worry about loyalties. It's like, I do a good job. Putin, he's my boss, but I'm getting the job done. I'm the one getting this shit done. So maybe I should be in charge. And then he's got, God knows how many loyal guys scattered throughout the Russian military that would fuck the government over in a minute.
I think as soon as this conflict is done, all of the Wagners, they're going somewhere, probably Syria or somewhere.
Africa.
That's not a bad idea. Yeah, Africa's a big one.
That might be something too. Putin might order them out of the area so that he can keep them busy at a distance and not at home getting strong, or building popular support to where maybe they could. I mean, because he is more of a nationalist probably than Putin is, so he would probably align with the hardliners.
He's on the same tier as probably Medvedev.
Yeah, so I could see them getting together and be like, thanks Vlad for the helping hand, but it's time for you to go.
Yeah,
I don't think they'd screw him over like that, but I think
Putin knows. I think Putin knows the length of the chain to keep them on, because I mean, looking at it realistically, Putin he's not dumb. He knows when someone needs to be taken out of the picture, and you can look back at the last 30 years of history for that.
All those windows.
Terrible accidents.
Commanders. One thing I wanted to say, we were talking about, you were mentioning Western tank deliveries, right? Leopard 2s, Abrams, all of this.
Maybe.
Something that I think obviously they're not sending them yet, but we're discussing it as a possibility, right? Something that gets lost in discussions of Abrams, Leopard 2 versus Russian tanks. No matter how pro-Russian folks are, they got to realize if a T-72, even a modernized one, goes against an M1A2, it's not a fair fight. The Abrams has the advantage. But in the environment that tanks are operating in Ukraine, most tanks aren't getting knocked out in tank-to-tank engagements. We know this from footage. Overwhelmingly, it's anti-tank missiles, it's aviation, it's artillery. from the side profile, an Abrams is worse protected than these Soviet tanks. They're not using explosive reactive armor. Only the first third of the hull is actually protected by soft armor, and then you have maybe 50 millimeters, right? It's not composite. It's just structural steel.
Well, it's rolled homogeneous steel.
Yeah. But my point is, it's everything can go through that. Literally everything people are using, whether it's Russian ATGMs, Western ATGMs, it doesn't matter. Heck, an RPG-7 can probably go through that if it has a tandem warhead or whatever. Just the point is, if these Western tanks did go to Ukraine, it doesn't matter how good they're going to be on tank-on-tank engagements. That's probably not what they're going to be thrown into. They're probably going to be thrown into open fields, charging at Russian positions, getting shot at by Ka-52s or artillery or whatever. So yeah, they might, like an M1 Abrams is a better tank than a T-72. At least the modern Abrams are. They just are. But if they're being used in an unsupported manner, as Ukraine consistently uses its armor, they're just going to get wiped out. It doesn't matter if it's the newest Abrams on the block. Tanks aren't invincible, Yeah.
And the other thing too, like you see a lot of both sides using their tanks to fire artillery strikes. We never got trained to do that in the M1, and I'm not saying you couldn't, but with the round and plus the rounds we carried, they're not really made to do like artillery shots. A heat round will blow up, but it ain't really going to blow up like a high explosive 125. And a Sable round would be pointless to shoot at anything other than another tank or a vehicle, because it's just going to they'll put a little hole through the brick and keep going until it stops, and that'll be it. It won't do anything. So again, they'd probably try to use them like artillery too, and then not get shit results out of it and not realize that they're just wasting their time.
I think the war now in Ukraine is just all very small squads kind of attack, maybe company size, 10 usually. So they, even the Russian side, when they attack, it's not really a combined arms kind of thing. It's also maybe one or two tanks, maybe with infantry and some infantry fighting vehicles, and they just try to push the lines, push the front lines, which is what the Ukrainians are also doing. So I'm not sure if it's a Soviet thing, like everybody just stuck in that way of fighting. Maddie is back.
Hello.
Before I light this, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right.
Very, very good.
It's now working. Yeah. So
what did you say? I'm dumb looking?
Dude, no.
That's
now
fair enough. I'm dumb looking.
No. The mic is now working. So we have two military guys, two military experts, and one former military. So we're gonna have a very good reference into what would be the reality.
Do you guys think loitering munitions, but with heavy payload, can they attack M1 and succeed or no?
They could top attack an M1, but I'm not sure how good that warhead is, so I don't know how good it would work against the tank. Just
what
because
is the
I
warhead?
don't know, it would have to be like a shaped charge probably
Yeah.
to get penetration.
I think it's like 3 kilograms or something. Like it's like tiny. I don't even know if it's shaped charge. I think it's just high explosive from what I've heard from people.
Yeah. You could damage like the sights and like the commander's gun and stuff like that. Maybe fuck up something, but I don't know if they had enough punch to, they're not punching through the front, maybe the top or the engine deck. But like I said, I don't even know if it's got enough punch power to punch through that. Because I've seen it hit like.
I have seen. I have seen loitering mounts, and what they do is they look like basically a heat warhead from a tank.
Yeah.
Those are the ones I've seen before, and those are obviously the shaped charge, just like Vaughn was saying. They also, I think there's some out there that are kind of like based on the bouncing Betty theory, where a tank vibration comes with range, it fires it up in the air and then looks to just shoot down.
Yeah.
And it would have to be a shaped warhead to make any penetration, or else I don't know how it would build up any kinetic speed or force if it was like a solid shot.
Yes, I think we're talking about the Lancet drone in particular. At least that was the impression I was under. But yes, Russia does have mines. They do have anti-tank mines. That's what I was saying. I think it's just like a couple kilograms of high explosive. I've seen a video or two of Ukrainian tanks being destroyed by them, but on those videos, all the tank hatches were open. So it might have just been that they ignited the ammunition or something, but I don't think it's capable of, caving in a tank turret or something.
Is that the one that's flying into the back? Everybody's watching the video.
Yep.
Is the guy sitting there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There
The
is
white color
something I
plane.
noticed about them. If they hit a soft target, you will see what looks like to me it's a shaped charge shot. So I just look at it, and then because you will see something pass through whatever you're hitting if it's soft, and if it was kinetic, it doesn't seem kinetic. It seems like it's a blast of some sort. Maybe it's just what I've seen at just angles, but it looks like maybe it has a charge that's just not necessarily a shape charge, but it has that functionality of some sort to
Like a
maybe
direct
direct a
charge.
blast.
It might have a shaped charge, but whatever charge it has, it seems pretty negligible. Like I've seen Russian channels. I think Slavyangrad or one of those channels was reporting a couple months ago that it really just wasn't good at engaging tanks.
Well, what you got to remember,
I can't reference the post
drone.
because it was so long ago.
The drone is this big, right? It's so easy to believe or conceptualize the fact that they could have interchangeable warheads. I mean, how easy would it be to carry like 2 or 3 warheads with you?
It's possible.
Oh, I would think that they have that option to load it out however they want with a couple, at least a high explosive and then a shape charge.
Yeah,
they're designed with multi-purpose warheads because when they're up there, they don't know what they're going to counter, so they have to have some type of flexibility. I mean, and from what I've seen, it does look like something is firing forward when they hit something. I'm not saying, that's what I'm saying. It may not be as we think of a shape charge, but it may have that functionality just to give it some force to hit with.
It might work better against, and if it's flying into the side of like a Bakhmut launcher and it hits the rocket, it doesn't really have to have much force to punch a hole in there and ignite that solid fuel. So probably just depends on what it's hitting. Like if it hits a tank in the back, it might start a fire, but if it hits in the front of the turret, it probably won't do much other than maybe damage the sight. But trucks and stuff like that, I would think it hammered all the time.
Someone in the chat says
If you guys
go ahead.
Okay. If you guys are in command, you have the control of Landsets. How would you use it? Because it seems to me that it's more useful when you use it to find the artillery pieces and take it out rather than hit tanks.
I would use it against
headquarters, mobile headquarters, and
radars,
mechanics and radars. Yeah,
I would use it against individual people.
That's dark, man.
Well, I mean, what better way to terrify people? If there's 10 guys walking down the road, one guy gets blown up and 2 other guys get wounded, I mean, and every time you hear a drone buzz, you think it's coming for you. I mean,
but they already have the quadcopters that do that. They have the quadcopters with the thermals. They just drop the mortars on them.
How about quadcopters that fly down with blades and chop your ass and chase you?
I would shit myself.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, if you want to demoralize the enemy, and I did see a video, and I swear to God, I'll see if I can find it and post it in the chat. It looked like there was a couple guys standing in front of a building, and some dude flew a DJI drone into the guy and blew it up.
Oh man!
And he was laying on the ground. He was still moving, so he was alive after the explosion. But that doesn't mean he didn't die. But it was about the size of a DJI, and it came in really slow, like you'd think a drone might fly in. And I was like, "What the hell? Did I just see a DJI blow a guy up?" But yeah, I mean, why not use Lancets on people and just scare them? I mean,
what do you think?
No. I'd like to make a point about this though, because you got to think about the cost of the weapon and it's what it's for. I would think there would be some type of calculation on the chain of threat that they would use it at. I mean, you don't just because you can make it return. You don't have to. It's not necessarily goes out and never comes back. You can make them come back. So you would want them to be used for something higher than, but he's right. I mean, if you really want to put the fear of God in the enemy, every time they hear a buzz, they're all ducking down. Do that a couple times. I don't think Geneva Convention's not going to be happy about it.
I'm pretty sure they ain't got a section yet about flying drones into people.
What about combat bears? Someone in the chat said it.
If you could train a bear to do that shit, more power to you.
I think there was a German division in World War II that had like a bear as a mascot.
It was the Poles did. It was the Poles. The Poles had
it. Was the Poles?
Makes sense.
But
so Mason, what do you think about the Lancet?
What I was going to say about the Lancet is it seems like what they're really used mostly against is self-propelled artillery and anti-air systems. Like probably the most cost-effective strike in the whole war, besides maybe the sinking of the Moskva, was a video of 2 Ukrainian S-300 systems, like launchers, that for some reason were deployed right next to each other. I have no idea why.
I saw that.
But they were like 2 feet away from each other. A Lancet hit one, it lit the missiles up and blew both of them up. So, and you've seen Bucks taken out by them, you've seen Cub systems. If someone compiled all this footage together, you probably had literally dozens of multi-million-dollar Ukrainian air defense systems slapped by like a however many tens of $1,000 drone. That's the best use for them, is just taking out soft, high-value stuff.
It's $200 of plastic, $1,000 of explosive, $500 motor. So what? $5,000 maybe max per drone.
Will be definitely more than that. So you have to add in the profit margin of like another 20 times. So
yeah, U.S. is making it. You might as well make it $1 million per drone.
Yeah, it costs $3 to make it, but it's $1 million at Raytheon.
And keep it in R&D for about 7 years and keep on sucking the money out just for R&D. Say, well, we need another $1 billion to develop it a little bit further. That shit happens all the time.
Someone said $50K for a Lancet.
Huh?
Someone said $50K for a Lancet
really?
in the chat. Yeah.
Wow.
What were those what were those one drones that were the U.S. was using early on? The suicide drones?
The Switchblade.
Yeah, I saw on one of the dark web places you could get a Switchblade for like $7,000.
If I'm not mistaken,
but it was a smaller. It was a smaller switch. It was a smaller Switchblade. It was a smaller warhead. So
the two, I think.
Yeah, it was like the Switchblade 300 was 7,000 or 4,000, I think, and maybe the 600 was 7,000. But I didn't have any.
In Ukraine seems to be pretty much a failure, right? It doesn't seem to work very well.
I think they're very short-ranged, from what I've heard.
Here's a question. We're talking about drones. Anti-drone guns, like the high band, the high frequency, and multi-band guns that they have. How do you guys think those are affecting, I guess, combat?
Yeah, the Russian MOD just showed a video. I think Russian MOD or don't know which channel.
I saw one from like July.
But not sure if it works at all.
Can I get back to something you guys were talking about? Because I'm sorry, it was something that came up and it's been spinning in my head. I caught you guys when you're talking about Bakhmut, Soledar, what's going on.
Yes. Which is the title of this.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We should be talking about this actually.
And I was putting in the chat that, and I sent you this something about this, Wyatt, about the Russians, and I don't mean this like for civilian evacuations. The Russians use a tactic where they will put you in a pincer movement, but they're going to leave you an escape route that ends in some place of their choosing. And they're going to give them enough room of escape to get through, but maybe have to leave all their larger weapons, or maybe they'll make it wide enough where they can start chewing everybody up as artillery as they get out of the pocket itself. And the idea is to squeeze it like a zit. And the reason I bring this up, and because I think this we may see it. It may happen. I'm not saying it will, because I'm not, I'm in no way affiliated with anything in the war service or anything. But the reason being is that if you have such a hard nut to crack, instead of you slaving away and digging these guys out one by one, you just make it so miserable that they leave on their own. And the only way you can do that is try to give them a way to get out. It doesn't mean you're letting them go. What it means is you're letting them get out in a current tactical situation to get out into the open, in this case, basically, and out of the salt mines and all that shit, and fight them out there instead of battling it and circling it. Because when you encircle a place, you got to keep it encircled, or else it doesn't work. So you're wasting resources just hanging around doing nothing, waiting for events to to deteriorate inside enough where they give up. But sometimes it's better to just squeeze them like a zit, let them get out, and then destroy them where it's much easier to do so and a more convenient time maybe for you.
Well, it's in the art of war, Sun Tzu says, if you corner a rat, I might get the words wrong, right?
I got the book. Do you want me to quote it?
Yeah, quote it. But it's essentially like, if you corner a rat, even a rat will fight. So unless you can totally surround an enemy, right, and you have the forces to do that, then it's really a bad idea to give them no avenue of retreat. Like, if Russia had the ability to just willy-nilly encircle Ukrainian units, right, throw 30,000 men to hold them for a month till they run out of stuff. Okay, fine, but that's not the situation. So right now, letting them flee along exposed corridors where you have fire control, I mean, that seems to me like exactly what Russia's been doing throughout this whole war. And I don't think it's unintentional.
Right. And I totally agree with you. I'm glad, Mason, somebody else sees it and understands. If you read the history of Russian history, you can even say, but Russian military tactics and stuff, and as it developed and stuff, I'm not like this big knowledgeable guy. I just know what I read and what I was trained with and stuff like that. Is exactly like he said. They've done it. They did it during World War II, and it's all. The problem is the media. Because we saw what happened when sometimes, Mason, when this was maybe taking place, and everybody's complaining, oh my God, they can't close the pocket. Oh my God, they're letting people go. Oh my God, hold on a second. Think about what they were doing. They were squeezing an entire city. Do you want to dig them all out in the city? Or would you rather they get out further away from the city where it's much easier to destroy them without risking the civilian population? Because I saw that a lot. It was like, oh, they're losing, and blah 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 blah. When you make and use tactics, there's something that comes with tactics. It's called time. You have to give things time to develop. So sometimes a trap that is set has been basically planned a while ago. It has a beginning, and it has its trigger, and then it has its results, whatever they may be. But that's the whole time. Sometimes people lose track of the scale of distance and time in all this. And I'll just end my rant there for now.
Well, hey, I was going to say it's a different stream, and I don't, but there's a guy here called Jackson Hinkle, and he's fairly popular. I think he's got hundreds of thousands of subs. And he's getting ready to go. He's getting ready to go on. He's talking about how Russia's captured Soledar and there's trapped soldiers, which is good in the sense in the States that guy gets a lot of coverage, so that story gets out, and a lot of people.
My mom loves that guy.
Yeah, well, he is a handsome young man.
He is.
I'll give him that. He has beautiful hair.
Oh, all the time. I mean, I'm sorry,
on Wyatt though.
But I'm just saying that's a good thing because his demographic, it's good that that story's getting out and people are hearing it, and he's pretty hardcore about supporting Russia.
I'm in his demographic, which is weird to see someone my age, and it's like, dude, how are you already doing that?
Maybe
he's one of the guys I heard talk about MAGA communism, MAGA socialism.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, but
yeah,
I like where he's coming from. I think his heart's in the right place.
His heart's in the right place. The thing I have with him is
words around, he can be forgiven.
Well, the thing is, he calls himself a Marxist Leninist, like representative. Like he calls himself
bad branding.
Yeah, he's like I'm a socialist, I'm a communist, but I'm an American patriot. I
Yeah.
mean,
he's pro-Christian too,
Yeah.
which it's kind of impossible to square with communism. I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of our pro-Russians will scream at me for
Chat's
that.
about
but,
to go
it
boom.
is what it is.
I don't want to go down my beliefs or anything like that.
Yeah, no. It's just
No,
we're
I was
not
just
his
saying-
point.
I was
blaming
just
you.
saying
I'm
that
just saying.
that the guy, it's good that guy's out there putting that
Yeah.
story out there, because that's a lot of people that are going to see it and not hear the
Exactly.
same bullshit on the news tonight.
So I want to
To be
ask
honest with you, I don't care where the truth comes from right now. I don't care if you're wearing a communist symbol on your head or if you're wearing a MAGA hat. And I'm the old MAGA guy. Just think of me that way. And here I am. I watched Jason Hinkle. I watched Nixon Garland. I watched people I've never watched before. So the MAGA communist type of thing, who knows how much our world's mixed, but at least in this one thing, we see it for what it is. And hopefully maybe we'll build something from it. Because maybe we realize we're not that far apart in the first place, and all we're bitching about is how shit is done. And if it's done correctly, then it doesn't matter what fucking government you're in. So,
Yeah.
So
I'm just leaving it there.
So coming back to the
Yeah.
original topic. So we just now we talking about encirclement, right? So
Yes.
giving the enemy a way out. But no, I would like to ask you guys what you guys think about the encirclement during the early part of the war. When the Russians encircled Chernihiv and Sumy. So why that failed? Why that did not work out?
I actually wanted to talk about this even before you brought that up, so it's like a perfect segue. Is the problem with encirclements in this war is Russia just has never had enough troops, frankly. Like in the Second World War, the Russians could encircle German units, right? Even if they were of relatively equal strength when they had fire superiority. Same the other way around during Barbarossa. There was all these encirclements, right? You study the Second World War and you see this all the time. It's not just a matter of having a dominating force, but if you're trying to cover, so look, like say Russia wanted to encircle Chernihiv or Sumy, you don't just have to have 30,000 guys to engage the Ukrainians and push them back on that front. You have to draw another concentric ring around the area you're encircling to cut them off and to defend your encirclement so that you yourself don't get, because you're very vulnerable, right? If you're basically projecting yourself behind the enemy lines and creating a new front line while trying to hold these guys into a pocket, it's really difficult. And you saw this famously at the Battle of Cherkasy during the Second World War, where the Red Army,
Bastogne as well.
kind of, but like Cherkasy, you had a large number of German Waffen-SS and Wehrmacht soldiers that were surrounded by a much larger Red Army force, but they were able to break out of the encirclement. They lost almost all their equipment.
You're talking about breaking out. My bad.
Yeah. They managed to break out, and it just showed, like, I think it was in late 1943 or 1944, and they were able to pull this off to the late war Red Army, which was just at that point way more powerful. So my point is, it's actually extremely difficult to encircle a position and actually cut off a large number of troops. Like, it's not like Hearts of Iron or something, drawing lines on a map where it's really easy. You have to have a crushing local superiority to pull it off.
And you got to be able to chase them around some too.
Yeah, and I think Russia does have a very clear advantage over Ukraine, but they've kind of already thrown that opportunity away. Unless Russia mobilizes to 1.5 million or something, I don't see big red arrow encirclements in this war. And I could be wrong, but I think it really is going to be slow grinding offensives until it speeds up as the Ukrainian strength is weakened. But I don't think there's going to be big, 100,000 man surrenders and giant pockets like World War II. If they had went into this war with large numbers, with a prepared force, Kharkov, Sumy, Chernihiv, yeah, absolutely. I think Russia could have taken them, no problem. But they went into this on the cheap, and they've paid for it. not necessarily in lives, but in the fact that this is still going on.
I have to agree with you. In some part, like, if we're going to go back like to Kiev when it was held, to me, I have always seen it from the beginning just for a fixing operation, and there's a couple reasons why. First of all, you had about 40,000 people that were going to have to take on what was the population of Kiev at the time. How do you do with 40,000 crawl through every single space, nook, cranny, and room to get everybody out of Kiev and expect to keep it? You're never going to do it. They knew they were never going to do it. So what they did was they put it there. Now, let me bring up something about this con so famous back then. If you look at it, there's a couple things about it. It's 40 miles long, okay? It's mostly trucks. Number two, none of them are dispersed for any type of cover or anything. If you were in a tactical formation in the middle of your enemy's territory, you would think you would kind of maybe spread them out a bit, get them deployed, in tactical road march fashion that you always would. But these trucks were back, front to back, lined up like they were trying to be seen. And everybody jumped on it, but it was like, nothing's going to take that city, really. And Mesa was right. They did it on the cheap at first. It was called a SMO for a reason. And like Mason said, maybe it was, they did it on the cheap. I think maybe they expected to fall quicker than it did. But I will tell you that they most likely had operational plans for things if it continued on. So, because the Russian MOD, people have to understand deep battle, and especially Russian operations in the way they work. I am no master at this. So I'm going to tell you that right now. But I do know this, is that they calculate everything for almost every conceivable thing that can happen down a chain of events. What they do is they go through events, they do a pause, they recalculate, rebuild, go again. And that's what we're probably seeing. I thought it was going to be a shift change from the type of equipment used that they would need for the next phase of battle. I don't know if I was wrong or not. I've been saying there's going to be a crushing blow coming from the Kherson region since the beginning. So that hasn't happened, but I'm sticking with it because I have my reasons why. But just for, like Mason said, I think they tried it on the cheap. I don't know if this is mission creep or not. I don't think it is, but for the most part, they paid for it in the beginning because, like Mason said, they build up everything and just go. They would just done it like a lawnmower and not cared about civilians. But that was civilians' lives mattered during this war. It was the first time I've seen it in a while. So I'm just going to drop it there.
One thing to remember, I know, but just one quick thing is you have to remember at the beginning of this war, Russians were advancing along something like an 800 to 1,000 kilometer long front line on the first, week of the war. That's almost identical, if not a little larger than the front line that the Axis forces in the first month of Operation Barbarossa were advancing on. The difference is in Operation Barbarossa, you had about, 10 times as many Axis troops, and they actually outnumbered the Soviets, right? The attacker actually outnumbered the Red Army. And frankly, they were qualitatively superior at that point, right? Wasn't really the case later, but at that point, they were both qualitatively superior and superior in numbers. And relative, right? The front line was much more densely populated. So people need to understand it wasn't that the Russians were stupid that they did it this way. I don't think so, at least. But no one's done this, right? The only example of a modern war was Desert Storm. And that was kind of reminds me of when the Japanese attacked Port Moresby with, I think, 4 or 6 aircraft carriers, right? There's a Japanese airman that called it breaking an egg with a hammer. Yep. It's that was Desert Storm, breaking an egg with a hammer. So the Russians, you know, they looked at that and they looked at their experience in Syria, and I think they just misjudged what their capabilities were. And I think Russia is a very strong country. I think its wartime potential is immense, but they totally misjudged what their abilities were with that peacetime army. Basically, they followed America's lead too much on military developments. They thought a small professional army would get the job done, but sometimes, like Stalin said, quantity has a quality of its own.
So because just now we were talking about the encirclement, I also want to highlight that when you try to do encirclement, you actually have a very long front line you need to hold, because the one that is getting encircled actually have a smaller front line. The one that was surrounding it actually needs more troops to actually surround the troops. And then if you have another front line you need to push forward, that's yet another front line that you need to have more troops in. So it's not exactly the best thing for the Russians to actually fully encircle the Ukrainian troops. Maybe it's better to let them out so that they can actually straighten the line. I think that's something that I thought that people need to also understand why encirclement might not be the best thing to do. Although they can always threaten and intimidate the Ukrainians into a surrender, but I don't think it's a good idea to just to fight an encirclement.
All right.
I
When
was
you're
just gonna
dictating
say-
battle, go ahead, Vaughn. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, with like what Mason was saying, I do think the Russians looked at how America's fought over the last 30 or 40 years and thought they could, copy that. And I think the only difference, their mistake is they went in light on the civilian infrastructure, whereas when we do it, we don't give a fuck about your power plants or your bridges or nothing. So we are able to accomplish that because we are willing to go that extra step, whereas the Russians kind of pulled their punches. They tried to do a fancy, glitzy operation, but then, it didn't work out because they didn't follow through like they probably should have to get the result they wanted to. I mean, they would have had to probably go in more like people thought they were going to go in with all the artillery and stuff to accomplish that. And, when we do Iraq or whatever, we didn't hold back. We didn't spare anything.
Can I ask a question to the chat?
Yeah.
Or to the group? If you guys were the local commander on the ground in Bakhmut, what would you guys try to? How would you guys try to salvage the situation?
On the Russian side or the Ukrainian side?
Ukrainian.
Oh, I would have. Well, it's all.
You're in
they're
a far
wedded.
pocket.
Yeah, they're in a stagnant line and have been there for basically forever.
It would depend on what kind of.
Is if the Ukrainian doctrine, I guess, or however they set up their forces, actually supported a more mobile warfare, we wouldn't be, they wouldn't really be stuck in the position there are. And that's the problem. They've been degraded to such a point is how many troops can they actually now move out of Bakhmut and get anywhere? And that's the thing is, if I'm a commander, I might be, God knows how long it's been since I've even heard an order given to me. Because I just ain't getting no information from the outside. There are so many complex things to that. I really, it would all depend on, Jesus, how much of a force is inside those salt mines? We don't really know. So, what if I'm a commander? I know we got like 10,000 guys just stashed down there ready to come out that somehow we fooled everybody from knowing about. So it's very hard to say. We don't know what the actual situation is, but
Right.
if I was in there, I would have been gone a long time ago and said, listen, we're never going to win sitting in a fucking trench trying to hold these people back. If you want to do anything, you want to start grabbing your forces, make them mobile, and get the hell west. So you're dragging Russia's communication lines further and further away where you can attack them and maybe slows down some of the ammunition and all the artillery that's pounding on you. But they're at the front. Russia drives right across the border, makes delivery right to the goddamn front, and drives right back. There is no there has never been a logistic issue in reality between Russia and the Ukraine. Maybe some guys got cut off a little bit for a little while, But that's the whole thing. And I brought that up because we don't know what logistical supplies they're getting at the point. So are they still at the ability to even feed their men at this point? Sorry, I babbled about that.
Something
No,
that
you're
I would
good.
like to ask.
You can shut me off
directly-
at any time.
Oh, I was gonna say, if I was there, I mean, I guess it would just depend on what kind of leeway I would have as a commander. I mean, if I was allowed to make decisions, then I would have left. I would have pulled back.
Yeah, so we're assuming you're a
Right.
commander in the area who can make those choices.
Yeah, but if you don't have any ability, I've heard that they're pretty regimented, and then you talk about the lack of communications and stuff. So it's like, and on top of that, they're all old school from the Soviet way, so you don't really stick your head out and show initiative. So I would assume they're probably screwed if they're even around. If the commanders are around, they're probably good guys if they're still around because they're staying with their men, knowing that they really don't have any say in what happens as far as. I mean, I wonder if they can even pull back from building to building without having to go through a bunch of shit. Can they make a decision tactically on the ground like, hey, we're about to be flanked, we got to pull back to this next high rise, or do they just have to stay there until it's too late, or they never hear anything?
Okay.
A question that I have, I just kind of thought of this, but I think, more intelligent people have probably been thinking this the whole time, is this situation kind of reminds me of back in the summer with the Kherson, right? Where Ukraine was very publicly signaling its Kherson counteroffensive in the media, and they were launching these attacks. It was in the news every day. But then the hammer fell at Kharkiv instead. I think, we know a lot of those Russian forces that were in Kharkov were redeployed to Kherson to stave off this huge Ukrainian offensive there. Could it be that in the next month or two, we're going to see a similar thing in reverse? Because we know Ukraine has rerouted a lot of men to Bakhmut. Maybe other sectors are more lightly defended, and we'll see kind of a reverse situation of what happened to the Russians. I don't know, just a thought.
I see two spots that it could happen. One is Pobjeda. I think they could just go really quickly and maybe attack Soledar from there. Or another one is maybe Zaporozhye somewhere they can do that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I did hear a story, I think it was on Wyatt's sit rep, about how the Russians, it was somewhere along the Zaporizhzhia line where the Russians moved into a village that was abandoned. And I'm wondering how many Ukrainian units are being stripped of a squad here or a platoon here along the Zaporizhzhia front.
A
to
tank
send them
here,
to
tank
Bakhmut.
there.
Yeah, and maybe the Russians are figuring it out and starting to notice little holes here, little spot here. I mean, if you can walk in and take a village and take control over the area immediately around it with nothing, I mean, I'd be curious to see how thin they are down there, because I think there is going to be something else somewhere too, because we all know they're stripping guys. I mean, you got to keep guys in the west. You got to keep guys on the northern border. You got to keep guys in the south. You got to keep guys at Kherson. You got to keep guys at Donetsk. You got to keep guys at Bakhmut. I mean, something's got to give somewhere. Bakhmut seems to be one of the places, Soledar. And if there's Russians walking into towns uncontested in the south, I'd think there's got to be some gaps down there. I mean, it might just be a village here and a village there where they have overlapping fire. They don't need to control it. But they got DRGs too, and they like to sneak around and do that shit too. So,
but doesn't that go against the doctrine that Russia is trying to pull? Because Russia's not trying to end this war; they're trying to destroy the Ukrainian army. They're trying to completely obliterate all of the standing forces. And if you're just going to take abandoned villages, there's no real point in it. At least that's unless you take them to then just give them back, so you draw the enemy out. That's
I don't know.
That-
I mean,
That specific abandoned village, it gives them direct fire control over like the main highway that goes.
There's a highway, yeah. The Zaporozhye highway, yeah.
and I think it's really clear that Russia does intend to seize Zaporozhye city. I mean, they've pretty much explicitly said that by annexing the region. Something I just want to mention very quickly, and I know I'm speaking a lot, but I think this is something worth remembering. Ukraine has a lot of men, right? They have hundreds of thousands of men. How many of those units are actually maneuver combat units, right? It's like in the Second World War on the Atlantic Wall. Sure, Germany had a lot of men, but they were static infantry divisions. They had Bubkiss artillery. They had Bubkiss transport. They were just guys in trenches with rifles and mortars, right? Yes, they're men. Yes, they can do point defense, but they're almost useless for counterattack. You can't really redeploy them quickly because they don't have transport besides maybe some civilian vehicles. How much of the Ukrainian army is like that?
Weren't there a lot of stories coming out of Kherson about troops walking to their next deployment?
Leg infantry isn't useless, but it's like if Russia launches their big offensive in the north and you have half of that Ukrainian army, 600 kilometers away, are they going to be able to redeploy with all their assets in a week?
I think the northern offensive is very, very unlikely.
I'm not talking about Belarus. I'm thinking, Belgorod or, there's a giant border.
Yeah.
When people say north, they assume it has to be Belarus, but there's Sumy, right? There's all of this border area, and yes, it's difficult terrain, but Russia has the numbers now.
So just now, Vaughn, right, was talking about the redeployment of forces that might have, weakened certain lines, right? It reminds me about, the situation, when Liman was under attack, the Russian-controlled Liman was under attack. Then I did report that, because they want to sustain the attack, because Liman was holding very strongly, right? And then they was encircling Liman, but then Liman do not want to fall. Then I reported that they started to redeploy forces from Sivers and Bakhmut up north to reinforce the offensive to capture Liman. And after the reinforcement, the Russians started to, getting overwhelmed, and they started to, have their counter-offensive, and then they withdrew. And and that was also when we started to see the lines around Bakhmut started to crack. The Ukrainian line started to crack. Because after the withdrawal of the forces, that's when, the Russians seem to start to make progress. Because before that, right, the Russians cannot penetrate through the Ukrainian lines around Bakhmut and Sivers region. But it was only after the redeployment to the north, towards the Kharkiv region, to the Liman region, that's when the Russians starting to make progress. Like they started to move. Where is all these places? Oh my God, I forgot the names. They started to the Vagina places. Remember all those places? Yeah. Vagina.
I'm sorry. I swear I just heard you say something crazy.
What's funny about you bring that up? You bring that up, and the other day I was looking at the map, and I'm like, is Vagina still under Russian control? It just popped into my head randomly. I'm like,
no, I swear I heard you say neo-vagina.
Yeah, so because when Liman was falling, right, the Russians are still struggling with Kodema, the Vagina, Zaiseve. They haven't really even reached Bakhmut at all. But it was only after the Ukrainians captured Liman and then have this redeployment that it seems like the Russians start to make advances, and we are seeing the same thing, the same redeployment of forces to Bakhmut from Kherson region. So a lot of the forces that was fighting in Kherson was all redeployed in Zaporizhia as well, and then Alan cannot take it. I don't know why he's still laughing.
There's someone in the chat who said DPA OnlyFans soon.
Please no. Please don't do it, Wyatt. Don't sell your self-respect.
I'm sorry.
No. Okay. And I'm not sure if I actually forgot about it. I actually did put on the map one of the days there is actually redeployment from Chernihiv. So there was an entire I think brigade worth of forces that's going to be redeployed from Chernihiv region to Bakhmut, like a few thousand, 5,000, 4,000 people. So with all this redeployment, the Ukrainians may have more and more weaknesses along other lines. And yet, with all this redeployment, they are failing to hold Bakhmut region, which is kind of surprising to me. That is like, because the pro-Ukrainian side always say that they are winning, or they are doing very well. But if you're doing very well and then you're not really fighting actively in many of these fronts anymore, why are you still getting pushed back at Bakhmut region? That is very unusual to me. Alan, have something to say?
Yeah. It kind of, you were talking about the numbers of soldiers, right? And this kind of reinforces the thing we were talking about earlier about are there actually 1 million troops that have been drafted? Thinking about it now, right? Maybe they don't have 300,000. Let's say they have 500,000. Doesn't it make way more sense if they're moving troops from Bakhmut all the way up to Liman and they're rearranging their troop positions, moving troops from Zaporozhye, moving them over to Bakhmut? Doesn't it make more sense to see the weakening in the line if they have significantly fewer troops than they're actually saying they have? If they've got, let's say, 500,000 troops, right, 600,000 troops, because I mean, let's say they started with 200,000, they mobilized 300,000. We'll give them an extra 50K. Say they have 600,000. It makes so much more sense to see them having to budget their personnel in that way, as opposed to having 1 million troops they could put wherever they want. Because we'd see 1 million troops, maybe not attacking, maybe not advancing. We would see 1 million troops deployed. You'd see the videos everywhere of huge formations. I guarantee they'd have it. You see it in Russia all the time.
Honestly, just for my 2 cents, I'm sorry. I think Ukraine has the men. I don't think that they're in combat-ready formations. If someone is to tell me Ukraine has 1 million men wearing camouflage uniforms with small arms, I'll believe it in an instant. Because they have a huge border, and I guarantee you every inch of that border is covered. I don't think that even Sumy doesn't have men in it. I think basically every town on the Ukrainian border with Russia has got tens of thousands of men defending it. What's the worth of those units? Do they have artillery? Do they have artillery ammo? Do they have actual air defense?
So they might not be effective.
Yeah, that's what I was hinting to earlier, is I think the core of the Ukrainian army, it's not necessarily the same people, right? Because people die, people are replaced. But the equipment, the structure, the peacetime structure of the Ukrainian army is still largely what Russia is fighting.
That guy's got
No.
I don't know if I agree with that.
What I mean is this.
A lot of people in chat are disagreeing. Not a lot. There's people in chat disagreeing that on the number of troops, 500 million, 600,000. What we're talking about is probably what the Ukrainian army had to start out with, and then whatever they got for the mobilization. If you factor in the death toll or the casualties, I think we're still sitting at least 500,000 soldiers available in some form to the Ukrainians. Nobody's trying to say we know exactly. We're just guessing. We don't see 1 million. We don't see 5. We figure there's a few 100,000.
My understanding is around 750,000, around there. Like if not counting anyone have died, from the beginning, from the original troops all the way plus all the mobilized troops, around 750,000. I always thought that it's going to be 1 million, but it seems like their mobilization effort didn't really reach that level. So it's around 750,000. But this number I have been maintaining for like the past 3 months. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if they have mobilized more. Ukrainian government statement is that they don't need more men. They have enough men. They just don't have enough.
They did another mobilization, didn't they? Like a couple days ago?
Yeah, they're recalling all citizens back, I believe. If you're of age or mobilization, you're being recalled back from wherever you are across the globe now, from what I understand. I wanted to say there's a couple things that maybe we should take a step back and look at it from a little bit of a distance, because we really don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we didn't know what.
We have no idea.
Are we back?
This is all just guesswork, essentially.
Yeah.
More or less educated guesswork.
Yeah, if we're all reading tea leaves here, from whatever tactics we're talking about to what we think they're doing there, whatever. I'm no general. I'm like anybody else. I have the same access to information as everybody else. Just we're going by experience here and what I've known through history, which Mason says a lot of good stuff about that I know of, that he's correct. Because he understands. That's one thing, is if we look through history, are we going to really know if the Russians were successful in the initial part of the operation up till now? I mean, what I mean by this is that maybe they were successful the whole time, and we're judging it because it's so close to us right now. It looks devastating. But what happens if we find out the real numbers later on, where like a casualty rate of 13, 14 to 1? I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying it exists. But what if you were to find that out and that was consistently through the whole operation? Then would you say Russia was successful throughout the whole thing? When especially it was a 13-to-1 ratio? Because you don't want to decimate your army to kill the other.
Yeah, I mean, then they could hang everything on the whole demilitarization goal and say, 14-to-1, we got what you wanted.
I think the winner decides that.
Yes,
yeah, and that's the problem.
Exactly.
And that's the whole problem. That's like Mason's pointing out, and I think he's going to be the same caliber. Western historians have done us a disservice when it comes to the Eastern Front. We do not understand or had access to really true information up there. You got to remember, some of the stuff that we know now wasn't available to U.S. anybody
until
outside
91.
of Russia. Yeah, since 91, and they're just now. Guess what? Biden and these assholes have now made it shut down. So Russia's never going to let an American historian go in and review the archive. That's why some of this shit it's so colossally stupid, failure, you name it. It has hurt people it's hurt history itself. I mean, and that's the problem. What I mean is that we have to really think about some of the things that when we judge things by what we just see in the moment right now. Because when you back out and give it time, you may have a complete opposite look, as long as I think everybody here would agree as the historians show us the truth. Yeah. And that's the thing. We don't know. And hopefully will. And that's the thing is I'm afraid we're going to get hoodwinked, or at least I'm afraid that the loss of knowledge about the history operationally, military-wise, and just the history of the Russian people themselves has been lost on the West for so long now that it's almost like an afterthought. When we got to remember, there was an army that kicked the best German divisions all the way back to the Reichstag. They did that, and it wasn't all just a flood of men and go for it. And if we don't care how much gets blown up or how many people die, as long as we obtain the objective, hoo-ha. That wasn't what the Russian army was after Stalingrad, because Stalin even put out, saying, stop doing that shit. He even put it out there, saying it. The whole problem comes, and Mason will agree. When Stalin got rid of the operational command and he went through the purge that happened, the Russian army had to relearn how to fight again because most of its command was gone. And everybody that was in command was probably about 2 to 3 steps way above their pay grade in brain-wise. And they had to learn, and after Stalingrad, after all that, they were able to start, and history will tell you, they even say it themselves, they were able to start to predict German operations because now they finally understood what they were doing, and now they finally understood that they could operationally make plans now based on the knowledge they now had, so they could start preparing for offensive later on when they could put that knowledge in place. They are deep thinkers, people. There is a whole avenue of the Eastern Front that I did not know that existed, and I'm just still learning it now, and I always will have to learn it because we just didn't have access. So hopefully it's better. So thank you. Woo-hoo.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's going to be sad about this when it's over is finding all the history and all the details. And so, I mean, I'd love to know the details on like the Gossamer air assault, how that went down, the units involved, the casualties, some of the bigger operations. It'd be interesting to see how they played out and what actually happened. And
yeah,
I'm sure the Russians will, that's going to be the one thing. The Russians are probably never admit their true casualties.
Right.
And I would imagine, especially like something at the Gosmel airport, that was pretty bad. So,
well, it depends who you ask.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm assuming,
some ways, dude, the Gosmel airport was one of the most impressive, if not the most impressive, airborne drop since the Second World War.
I meant just after the fact when they finally got pushed out. I mean, I don't know how exactly it went down because the way it made it sound like they were more or less pushed out and actually fought. But it could have been more they left the area as they withdrew like they did,
I have no idea, man.
Anyway.
We don't know yet.
Because during the first 2 weeks of war, it was so confusing because there's a lot of misinformation coming around. Like the pro-Ukrainian side have their own stories, and it's not just one version; they have like 3 versions, and then the Russians have their own version. And I was like, when I was covering, I was like, "What the hell is happening?" It's like, no, they say that they push back the Russians out of Kostomo, and after that, they're still there. Then after that, the Russians attack, but then the Russian attack disappeared. No, there's like nobody know what the hell is happening. Like I reported that the Russians attacked all the way to the south of Kiev, and then the entire force just disappeared. So it's like, what the hell is happening? Nobody knows what's happening during that first month of war.
Yeah, I mean, I remember looking at the maps and I'm like, people were like, well, how do you think it's going? I'm like, I think it's going pretty good for Russia because it's like they're literally everywhere. There's fingers of red everywhere. It's like they're just trickling in wherever. They're eventually going to form up into these big groups and then spread out from there, which didn't happen. But, like you said, the first month of the war, I thought Russia was doing fine. I was like, they're everywhere. They're here. They're there. They got this, and people were talking about the 40-mile convoy. It's like, talk about it all you want. It's not getting bombed. They should send in A-10s. It's like, yeah. And then the Russians will bring in S-300s in and ZSU-23s and, SA-9s. And then the A-10s won't be able to fly over the convoy and do what they want. It's like,
A-10 has the highest friendly fire rate of all American aircraft.
Well,
A-10 pilots are just crazy.
But you can't. That's so kind of a hard thing to judge because the.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of technology that goes into it.
Than any other. Well, it's designed to engage very closely.
Yep.
And so that's always pretty much going to be engaging where not. Where other troops may wind up getting involved as opposed to like an F-15 or something. So that you got to kind of put it in its place. But with Vaughn, what you were saying about A-10, I truly think that convoy was for NATO to see. Because I think it was to see what their reaction to it would be. Would they encroach the airspace to try to get to it? That's what I always kind of thought about it.
Look at how many videos they made of Bakhmut or Bayraktar videos on the convoy. For all we know, will we ever know how many of those Bayraktars got shot down taking pictures of the convoy? Because, I mean, it was pretty clear early on, 6 months into the war, they ran out of Bayraktars, or they had very few left and they were holding them back, and they started switching to, shitty drones and stuff. I mean, for a while there was no Bayraktar stories. So I think, they might have just had, like you said, they had it parked there so everyone could see it. These guys go send the Bayraktar up. Oh, no, we lost a truck. Big deal. We shot down the Bayraktar. Again, it's probably cost effective. How much does a Gaz truck cost versus a Bayraktar? It's never coming back.
I'd like to say 2 things. One, in direct reference to what you're saying, which it reminds me of, we saw all these videos in the early war of like point blank. And I was in an anti-armor team. So for me, I sighed whenever I saw these videos of pro-Ukrainians posting them because I'm like, man, they have no idea what happened after this video, where it's like a Ukrainian with an RPG or with a missile shoots a Russian tank from like 100 meters away and the video stops. I guarantee you all the other vehicles in that convoy 2 seconds after film started rolling just annihilated that anti-armor team.
Yep.
Every single time.
Look at those idiots that were sitting on the fucking vehicle on the side of the road and the Russian tank. I know they try to say it's friendly fire, but the Russian tank came down the road. The guy shot him point blank and blew the shit out of him. And the only reason you know about it is because one guy ran away and made it to the woods. But you could hear him trying to light him up with the dushka and the fucking coax.
Until today, I'm still not sure. The tank, is it Ukrainian tank or a Russian tank? Is it a friendly fire or is it an attack?
I think it was a T-64, so it had to be Ukrainian, at least one of them.
Here's the thing about that, because to me, when I first thought, I thought maybe this is a Russian, head recon unit going it through because they're close to the lines, and the people that were there were newly arrived to the front and didn't understand that this area may not be fully controlled. And as the tank rolls up, you'll see he swings his turret, but if you look at it, there are other tanks in column coming this way, and they're faced in combat formation. So that's the reason why I kind of lean towards it was a Russian tank that came up. I don't know. It may have been a T-64. I don't know. I'm just speculating here, of course. But from my mind, he doesn't fire until he sees the BMP that's sitting beside the road where these guys are from. But he's looking at them, and I think one guy finally walks up and kind of looks down the road, and it's like he starts wondering what the hell's going on. Why hasn't this guy like put his tube up to say, yes, I recognize you guys are free? But he didn't. He kept his tube down right there. They should have just said, well, fuck.
Well, the other thing is too, is when those tanks were rolling up, it's like, the guy's probably hoping they're friendly, but like, if you start running, them motherfuckers are going to light you up. Because it's like, if one guy would have broke to the woods, all the other guys would have been screwed. Or the guy that walked out there and looked down the road, if he would have been like, oh shit, and took off running, it would have been a free for all.
If you see the aftermath, there's actually fire. I think at the very end, there's another shot of the video with the guy who was with the guy that took the video, and they're running down the road backwards. You can hear I think the beginning of an engagement. I don't know. I have bad ears, but it sounded like to me, and other people had pointed it out, that it sounded like there was some type of return fire, or there was an engagement, which it still could be friendly fire, because at that point, nobody's established who is who. That's why I'm not discounting a friendly fire, but I am saying, to me, I don't know, because it looked more like a forward, basically a recon column coming forward to find a way through to the next objective. But who knows?
The reality is, I think until today, right, I think there is still no consensus into those tanks are actually Ukrainian or Russians. Like, until today, I didn't really see who can really confirm it. There's multiple stories. Like, some say there is Russian tanks that when they go until so close, then they recognize these are Ukrainians. But the Ukrainian soldier also reacted in the way that it seems like those are Ukrainian tanks. It's like he looked around, he looked up, and then, oh, it's our tanks. Then he ignored the thing and continued to take the photos and things. So
think of this, Wyatt. Yeah. Think about what could be happening now on the front lines with guys with even less experience to identify front float tanks out.
Well,
things like that.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Experience matters,
Yeah, I guess that's what I wanted to ask about the last question, before we finish up. Like, is friendly fire going to be a much more serious problem in the upcoming couple days? You think, as the Ukrainians try to pull back? Do you think they could see friendly fire incidents ramp up, at least in that part of the line?
Oh yes, passing through friendly lines is just about as bad as trying to ford and establish a beachhead. It has to be, well, at least the way I was taught it has to be done in a particular way. If you're coming up, especially in combat areas, now understand, I've never been in combat. I'm going through training. Everything I say is through training. I've never been in combat. I just don't want to steal people who's had that experience. I don't want the honor of it. I just want to understand. I'm a trained soldier, and that all of us are, until we actually cross that Rubicon, knowing if we would be able to do the things that we think that we would be able to do in combat. I'm not going to cross that line. That's why I'll always state that.
Every plan is good until it faces until you contact the enemy, right?
Well, that's the whole problem, because you don't know. First of all, you got enemy all around you anyway, and you're passing through the front. Coming back in. As a tank column or as a recon unit, I was cavalry. So if we're doing stuff like that, we got to come back through friendly lines, and we got to identify who we are, because they're not just gonna wait till we ride up on them, right, Vaughn? Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, he would like in your case, like I would be in my tank company sitting back. He would go forward and scout, and then he's going to call in what he sees, and then he's going to have to pass through my lines, and we're going to have to coordinate that, because he's out in front. I know the enemy's out in front. He's telling me the enemy's coming, but he's coming in front of the enemy, so we got to coordinate all that to make sure he passes through. They don't. And the other thing I was going to say was somebody else go ahead. I forgot. I lost my train of thought.
No, you're friendly, passing through friendly lines. There's specific ways it's done.
I was going to say.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I don't think the friendly fire will be that much of an issue. I mean, it'll happen, but I think it really is going to depend on how much control they have at the line where they're withdrawing from. Like, if the units that they're going to go towards know they're withdrawn, then it probably won't be as bad. But if you've got blocking units there and then other units that don't know to withdraw and other units trying to withdraw, I could see that being a problem, because unless you got a red stripe or a blue stripe or an orange stripe, you're probably going to get shot at. And, you know, I'm pretty sure no one on either side is pretending to be the other guy, because that's pretty much going to get you shot right off the point. Even though you're in
Executed.
uniform. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that would be the same thing as me putting on an American uniform. If I put on a yellow piece of duct tape and walk towards the Ukrainian lines and get captured after I shoot a bunch of guys, they're going to shoot me right there. They're not going to fucking make me a prisoner.
Yeah, you're not covered by the Geneva Convention, I think, if you're impersonating.
But I think it just depends on
enemy.
You're right.
I just think it depends on how organized that area is, wherever they're withdrawing from. If it's chaos, then yeah, you'll have people shooting each other, running over each other, bombing each other.
Right.
It'll be chaos.
And the thing is what round, we don't know how much training these people will have had, especially like in 2 minutes. Please.
Are we wrapping up? Are you leaving?
This meant we're at 2 hours.
Yeah. We said we were going to wrap up.
I just want to add one more point. Just now you were talking about the training, right? That because of if they have enough training to cause friendly fires and things. Because if you all saw my report just now I posted, in the closing part I did mention that the lines are falling a bit too fast within the urban area in Soledar. And it is very different from what we've seen at Basna or even Severodonetsk. Even Severodonetsk seems to hold much better. The fight seems to be much more closer. I never expected Soledar to fall this quickly. Like, because they have an entire high-rise built-up area, in the northern area, northern Soledar, and that looks a lot like Novoleda. Like it should hold much longer, but somehow the entire line just crashed. I wonder if it's because all these people, they are mainly fighting on the Ukrainian side are the territorial defense people, and when you're fighting from distance, right, it's not that bad. But when you come to close quarter combat, all your trainings is going to be important.
What I want to say is the Ukrainians are probably very worried that becomes a sucking vortex, because every unit around it that sees anybody passing through and going towards the rear in the conditions that we've heard they are in now, you're going to have people just kind of like falling in line behind it, trying to sneak out with it. I mean, it all depends on the morale of those troops at that time. Can they let people pass by them knowing they're going to the rear and not want to go to the rear themselves, but hold the line maybe as rear guard protection?
What I've seen,
and what you're saying, if it's happening fast, that could be a problem right now.
What I've seen from some reports is that the unit that was stationed there, especially in the high-rise buildings, they just bailed. They just bailed out of nowhere, and they didn't tell they did tell, but they told very, very late to the higher ups. And by the time the reinforcements were sent, Russia already entered the high-rise area, and after that it was just.
Wow.
It came out from nowhere, right? The news.
Yeah.
It didn't come out from nowhere. I can tell you exactly why it happened. What happened is the Ukrainian soldiers opened up their laptops and they went on YouTube and saw a History Legends video predicting the fall of Soledar. And that's why it fell. They just watched it in the apartments like, well, shit, guys, better pack up.
I do wonder. I think the reason why it might be falling faster is just because it's cold. I mean, those guys are fighting in the cold. They're wet. We've seen the conditions. Yeah. Obviously, they're probably having problems keeping supplied, fed, and warm. I think the cold is taking a toll, and that's why they're breaking faster, because they're fucking tired of it. I mean, you can want to fight, but if your hands are frozen and black with frostbite, you can't. I mean, I heard a story today they said there's guys going to the rear getting limbs sawed off because they're black with frostbite. So. Maybe they're just done.
I saw a picture of it. I want to unsee that shit, man. I've seen some crazy shit during this war. Frostbite burns. Frostbite is fucked.
Right click unsee.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean about the sucking vortex, is that it becomes a thing itself where it's unable to, there's no command structure to stop it, or any command structure that will be listened to stop it. It doesn't mean it's necessarily there. It may have been fragged. It may be not alive, but it was there at one point. Or even the command structure themselves, see, there's no reason why. I mean, it's not like these
It's
are
kind of
all
crazy if you look at what you're saying. Literally, if there's no real command or control, it is a vortex, because you could literally have units rotating in, not knowing what the situation is, and units rotating out because they know how bad it is, and there's
That's
no
what I
way
mean.
to control it. So basically, guys are marching in, dying, and other guys are running the other way.
Yep.
And like you said, other guys might see that and say, "Hey, why should I sit here and wait and hold the rear
Yep.
guard when I can get an hour more ahead of the Russians too?"
Exactly,
So I
Vaughn,
want to-
because it all depends on the morale of the units around. Because if they will, are they going to be hard enough to allow that unit to go by without wanting to run themselves? That's what I mean about the sucking vortex, because if it happens, it goes and it starts gathering forces as they, because nobody's telling them not to retreat. So why the hell not? I don't want to die up there and getting slammed by artillery all night. So, that's the reality. When it comes to morale, these are the moments that morale really matters. And we will see what happens in Ukraine right now, where it really stands.
Well,
That's
Well,
a
I
perfect
think
way to-
this is just the beginning of the winter, like the true winter in Ukraine. So imagine how the civilians are going to be. Like, this is the beginning, and they're going to have more
Yeah.
and more power cuts. It's going to be
Okay, so-
interesting to see.
So this is a great way to go to our closing. Just before you guys all disappear, 1,000 over viewers, which is awesome. I want to also introduce that all these people, right? They are all fellow viewers of DPA channel, and they are all participants from the open mic, which is how I know them and managed to invite them onto the show. So do go subscribe to DPA IRL channel and watch the open mic. All these great people is coming from the open mic. It's all like you guys, they're all fellow viewers.
Hit
And
that like
there's
button.
a lot of other awesome speakers that you all haven't maybe never seen before. So, do check it out, DPA IRL channel. And let's do some closing. What do you all think will be, how long can Bakhmut hold for Ukraine?
With Soledar falling, I mean, if Ukraine wants to keep throwing men into there, I think they can hold it basically until their whole army is worn down. But Ukraine isn't stupid. They might be making questionable decisions on this front, but I think they'll pull back within a month. That's my opinion.
A month.
Okay. I was playing it a little bit more conservative. I think they might have stagnated or after Soledar, and then maybe slowly kind of pushed into Bakhmut. But after seeing, hearing from you guys and all that, I mean, I could see Bakhmut fall, and then maybe the Russians are probably going to try to rush somewhere. I don't know if they will get there. I don't know specifically whether it's Siversk or go east towards Chasov Yar and all that. But predictions at this point don't freaking matter. I made mine. I was completely awful. Apart from that, everyone.
Yeah, where's
pressed the
that
like
winter
button.
offensive at? Damn it!
The true
other than that-
offensive needs to be on the like button.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We need HIMARS strikes, Kinjal strikes, and tactical nuclear strikes on that thing, guys.
Yeah,
Come on.
for those who haven't subscribed,
Well-
do subscribe.
Just think about this. What if a Zircon, they took one Zircon missile with a kinetic warhead, but doesn't need any explosion, made it depleted uranium and just sent it right into the middle of the salt mines of Bakhmut?
Oh.
It would level it all, then there would be no problem. I mean,
I don't
that's
know
the
about
thing
that
people
one.
don't understand. Russia has the
Why are you
capability.
Why are you trying to destroy Wagner's salt company?
I mean,
Yeah.
see, I don't, I haven't been, I was working today. I haven't seen anything or read much of anything.
No,
I saw
somebody posted a picture of like a bag of salt with Wagner's
Oh.
logo, and it's like Wagner's premium salt for like.
Hey, if
I
the
was like,
Wagner
if they
boys
sold
can
that
take
shit,
it,
I'd
it's
buy one
theirs.
to have it.
Hey, Wyatt, you
Yeah.
can't use the expression pinch of salt anymore. It's just showing that you're a Russian Kremlin bot. So
Oh,
Oh.
Yeah, a pinch
Just
of,
down
you have
to-
to say like a pinch of Wagner or a pinch of Provorkin, whatever.
now
that
it's
was.
just
No, I have a
MSG,
pinch of Wagner
no more
salt.
salt.
yeah,
just
only MSG,
MSG.
right? So
Yeah.
no, coming back, predictions. How
I
long?
think if they're smart enough, they'll just make newer defensive lines and pull out 2 weeks, 2 weeks from Bakhmut.
2
If they're
weeks?
smart. If they're not, they're probably gonna hold it for as long as possible.
Maddie,
Are we-
what was your prediction?
Are you talking about Ukrainian or Russian?
Either.
Ukrainian can hold Bakhmut for how long?
As long as the Russians let them. That's about it.
okay.
It all depends on what chain of scale they go up. I mean,
That's so
I'm
pro-Russian.
saying they could just own it all right now and just drop a Zarkon missile and walk away from it. Just move their people back, let it happen, and move on. But they choose not to do that. So, I really, how many people are in the salt mines right now? What do they have down there that they can use to fight with, or is there something in there they're trying to protect? We don't know, and that's the thing. They may hold on to the last man to where basically there's no choice but they surround it and then go in. I don't know, and it depends on a Russian operational plans. Do they want to tie up a lot of resources for this, like we were talking about earlier, or do they have other plans going? Other plans ready to go where that is a linchpin, so it has to happen. I don't know, but as it stands right now, I think it's becoming that sucking vortex I said, and I think it will fall within a month.
I worked in a mine when I was younger, and I can kind of answer that. So all the mines
Good.
in Bakhmut and Soledar, they are all very, very old. They're here from Soviet times, and most of the minerals are already taken out. So what happens when a mine gets old is that the rock, it eventually starts shaping itself, and it's very, very sturdy. So the idea that you can just send zircon missiles and put bash it all in, it's not possible. The rock's already into the strongest shape.
Yeah,
So
a
it's-
I think
zircon,
you
a zircon
underestimate what
isn't
zircon
actually.
can do.
I don't know, man. Like a zircon is really fast, but
Yeah.
it's not like a mega tactical nuke or something. Like it's
Oh.
it's a pretty small explosive. Like yeah, it hits with a lot of force, but you're talking about taking out a giant salt mine. You're going to need like thousands and thousands of pounds of carefully placed explosives. Like controlled detonation type shit.
All right.
Well,
I don't think.
You know what?
I don't
I
think.
have a
no-
prediction.
Of it though, if you
I don't
level
think
the
no one would
exit from the
do it.
beginning,
Hey,
Oh,
one by
so-
one by one.
my bad. Go ahead, brother.
I have a prediction. There's no one in the salt mines. They all left. There it is.
I agree with you.
I agree.
Okay, there we go. That's good. I like,
One prediction.
it's just as valid as anything else, right?
We don't know anything else. So.
One prediction.
Well, my sources are saying that Bakhmut was captured 2 days ago, but we just haven't announced it yet because we have to make sure we survive the counterattack.
No, we have to get as many views on Bakhmut-related content
honestly,
first to drum up
Though with
attention.
Bakhmut, I think it depends on what happens up around Soledar on the south end. If they can penetrate that south end and maybe go start hooking down if they want, or hooking around behind Soledar up towards Seversk, I think maybe Soledar falls faster. But I'd say for the time being, it's at least a few weeks to a month, unless something breaks between Soledar and Bakhmut.
A week to a month. Yes,
Yeah.
Let's cheating.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're taking out he said 2 weeks, he say 1 month, and then 1 week to a month. All right, that's all. Thank you everyone for participating. Thank you for joining, and thank you
Thank you very
everyone
much.
for watching.
Subscribe.
It's 1,000 over viewers.
Yeah,
Subscribe.
everybody.
Everybody
Y'all
stop.
have a good night.
Asia, subscribe and hit the like button, you bastards.
Check out the DPA IRL channel for the open mic. You will see these guys very often. They are all the regulars. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much. And I'll see you in the next update. Okay.